Hello, this is Steve Dudley, Inside Crime here in Washington, D.C. I'm talking with Sam Logan. He's the director of Southern Pulse, also based out here in the D.C. area. Sam, how you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Good.
Listen, I was just checking in because we had a major capture today of a Zeta, or at least in the last few hours we have capture of a Zeta. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this character.
Il Rana is I guess what he's known on the street. He's one of those guys that you suddenly know more about him when he's captured than you did when he was still out on the street. He's definitely not low level, but from people that I've talked to in the area where he operated, there was always mention of sort of this cadre of not completely total high level guys, but they're above plaza bosses. They're below the leaders, and I think he's sort of slotted in there. He's been with the organization, I would guess, for around 5 years, maybe six. He's not one of the original 31 or 32, depending on how you're counting, but the guy definitely had some control. I think he had fairly serious people reporting to him, and as I understand, he also reported to either Trevino or Alaska directly. So that implies that while he may not be in the top five of the organization, he's possibly in the top 10.
What does this mean for the Zetas when they lose a guy like this?
Well, I think most directly it affects their operational capability in the area that he oversaw. So my understanding is he oversaw a lot of Coahuila and Nuevo León and parts of Tamaulipas, maybe parts of the Frontera Chica, where you have Reynosa and Ciudad Mier heading up to Nuevo Laredo. My understanding is when the Zetas joined, or at least agreed to begin working with the Beltran-Levy organization in 2008, he may have been one of the early guys that came in and supported the BLO in Monterey. But that's speculation. That's just sort of me thinking out loud. But his main base of operations was in Saltillo. And as much as the Zetas sort of clamped down in Saltillo, and as much as that was a plaza, a Zeta plaza, I think that's the most direct impact. Losing Rana is tantamount to losing, their main guy in Saltillo, and also the guy who probably understood what was going on farther north in Monclova, and then down the road, down towards Torreon, where the Zetas are, I believe, pushing a front against El Chapo's guys in the Sinaloa Federation into Durango.
What about what does this mean in the larger sense of the Zetas' battle with their former bosses, the Gulf Cartel and the Gulf Cartel's new allies, especially thinking about the Northeast, Tamaulipas and Nuevo León states?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the northeastern pocket there. If you want to draw a triangle from Reynosa to Matamoros down to Tampico, and then complete the long edge there, that whole pocket of turf, I think, is pretty much been clamped down by the Gulf Cartel. The Matamoros being sort of their nerve center going back decades. So when you take a guy like Rana out of the play, it may bolster the Gulf Cartel to push out of that bubble a little bit. It may bolster them to push into Saltillo. It may also bolster El Chapo to send some of his henchmen. Who knows? Maybe the Matazetas will show up in Saltillo in the next couple of weeks. But I think in terms of the relationship that the Zetas have with the Gulf Cartel, right now it's probably too early to say how it's going to play out. But my suspicion is that it's not going to have too much of a direct impact on the big picture and the relationship between these two groups. And nor will it have a major, I think, operational impact in terms of what I believe is a Zetas push to move into Durango State and then south into Jalisco. I think that's still going to be happening. Though, Trevino, who's just to the north in Nuevo Laredo and Alaska, wherever he is, this sort of arrest, I think, is going to generate a phone call. They have to figure out who can they place there, and do so quickly, because when there's blood in the water, these sharks are going to show up, and Saltillo could heat up in the next week or so.
And last question, what does this tell us about the operational capacity of the Mexican government right now?
Well, that's a good question because the cycle I think is getting tighter, and what initiates a cycle, for example, is a violent event. Someone important, is killed in one organization or the other, which drives a level of violence. We saw in Veracruz the bodies show up, and so that's the beginning of the cycle, and then it goes where there's a request for federal support. The federal support comes in hot and heavy with either police or military or both. Maybe planning begins for a Marine sting. We saw that happen in Veracruz very quickly, whereas it took them a little bit longer to get things fired up for Juarez when that city initially went bad, and so what I think it tells us is that operationally there is probably a certain level of streamlining that's going on just in terms of logistics and moving people around. I think additionally, it speaks a bit to intelligence gathering capability. But what's most interesting, I think, from my perspective, especially after a recent trip to Monterey, learning about these anonymous tips that seem to be picking up in Monterey. Is his location, I believe, people have reported came via an anonymous tip called into the police. Someone knew who he was, and they took a risk, and that's something that a year ago I don't think it would have happened. And now here in areas of Monterey like Guadalupe and San Pedro and even in Monterey itself, there's been an increase of anonymous tips, and that I think says something to the Mexican society in general, and that the level of trust is rising, and they say, look, we're going to give you information and you're going to do something about it instead of finger us and come and get us. So I think that's an important consideration.
He's Sam Logan, director of Southern Pulse at southernpulse.com. Sam also has a book coming out on the Zetas with George Grayson, forthcoming book in the next couple months. When's that going to be out?
With any luck, it'll be March 2012.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Sam. Good to talk to you.